All right, guys, we're gonna do a video series here made up of multiple parts when we're talking about step-by-step how to do your very first rental property deal. The very first thing you need to do with rental properties as an investment is to determine financing. Because when it comes down to it, if you can't finance it, nothing else matters. So don't spend time finding properties, evaluating areas, or doing anything else until you have your financing set up. Now, we're going to talk about a couple of different options here because lots has changed over the years when it comes to financing. So first off, you can be looking for properties that are in need of repairs. Now, if they're in need of repairs to the condition where a normal appraisal with a full everything in working order can't be done, then you're going to have to get a hard money loan. And then you would do a refinance into a 30-year fixed. Okay, so that's if something needs a lot of repairs. Now, if it just needs a few things or some updates, but it's still in good condition, you've got the money to do those updates, no problem. But if you need money to get the repairs done and it wouldn't qualify for a traditional loan, then you're gonna have to do a hard money loan and then refinance. Now, let's say that it's in decent condition. You could go right to getting a 30-year loan. One of the things that people don't realize is there's a new called DSCR, debt service coverage ratio. And what that basically means is rather than looking at your income and everything that you make and those types of things, they simply are looking at the property itself. And they're saying, okay, if the loan is $1,000 per month with interest and principal, if you're at 1 to 1.5, meaning the rent is somewhere between $1,000 to $1,500, everybody's going to be different. They may at 1.5 it'd be $1,500, at 1.2 it'd be $1,200. But they're saying if the rent is $1,200 and the payment's $1,000, that's 1.2. 1,200 to the 1,000, and the DSCR says, well, as long as you've got that, we're okay. We don't care about other things, although they are going to want to make sure you've got decent credit, okay? You can't have crappy credit and owe money to the IRS and judgments and all that type of stuff. You're going to have decent credit. It doesn't have to be amazing, but you're going to have decent credit, okay? Another thing that you can look at is if you have experience and you have money, one of the things that you can do is look at doing a construction. So you can do construction to rent, which basically means you're getting a construction loan and then you're refinancing that into a 30-year loan like we're talking about. Now, with both of these types of things, if it's in good condition or it is new construction or you're going right to the DSCR, there is going to be money down. You're going to have to put money down to make some of these deals happen. There's going to be money. Now, how much? It's going to depend on the program. It's going to depend on the lender, all those types of things. We'd help you out with all that, but there is going to have to be money down, right? And there's going to have to be some reserves. So that's one thing to keep in consideration. However, with something that's in need of repairs, this is where we get into like a BRRRR type scenario where we're trying to get into a property with little to no money down. Now, it has to be the right deal. It's got to work out. We're going to talk a little bit about this BRRRR strategy. So the BRRRR strategy basically is that I can get this property and fix it up. And if I can get that fixed up property for somewhere around 75, 80%, once the work's all done to it, to appraise for that, then I can get a rate and term refinance. Let me tell you what that means. Stepping back, hard money, short-term loan, high interest, expensive. 30-year fixed loan is going to be a low interest loan, monthly payments. It's going to be a lot less expensive, something you're more used to with a regular house, although it will be a little bit more expensive than that. Okay, so let's say the end goal here is the appraisal. Once the property's fixed up and all done, we want to get that appraisal at, let's say, $250,000. I'm just going to use pretty easy numbers here. So to get our rate and term refinance, we're going to be somewhere between 75 and 80% of that number. So we're going to take 250 and we're going to divide that out on my handy dandy calculator here. 250 divided by 0.75. Oh, whoops, did that wrong. 0.75, 187,000 to 200,000, okay? So basically, I need to make sure that there's 20 to 25% equity in this, but I want to create that equity, and I want to create that equity by doing rehab to the property and by purchasing a good deal on both fronts, okay? So what that basically means, let's just use 200,000 just as an easy number. What it basically means is my purchase, my rehab, my closing cost, and my interest that I'm going to have to pay on that time. I want all of that not to exceed $200,000. So maybe my rehab is 40,000 and my interest is 10,000 and closing costs are 15,000. Let's see, 40 plus 15 plus 10. I'm just using numbers here, minus 200. That means my purchase, I'd want to be around $135,000 as a purchase. This is obviously just for example purposes. Now, what happens if this is more than 200,000? Well, if it's more than 200,000, let's say it's $210,000, you'd have to find a way to come up with $10,000 to make this deal happen, unless it appraises for more money than this 250 at the time that appraisal is actually done. So you'd have to find a way. But the great thing about this is instead of having to pay the rehab, the closing costs, all those different types of things, the purchase price, you're getting into a rental property for $10,000. So if you look at that 10,000 divided by 250, you're getting into a rental property for 4%. You know, very, very low, right? And you've got something that's fixed up in good condition, everything else like that. So this whole BRRRR strategy is getting into a property as little money as you possibly can, buying a great deal, getting the rehab done, then doing the refinance, and then you can do the refinance into a DSCR type loan. So those are the types of things you need to be looking at. The first thing you want to do is get pre-qualified. You want to get pre-qualified so that you know you can get that DSCR loan on a takeout. You want to get pre-qualified so you can get the hard money loan, so you can do the BRRRR type thing, new construction, whatever the case is. But the first step in all of this is getting qualified, making sure you know what the lender can lend on and what you're qualified for. The important thing with that is you want to make sure you're shopping for properties that work for the loan that you're able to get. Because if you go out there and find properties that you can't even get a loan on, you're wasting everyone's time and especially wasting your time. So step one in all of this is getting pre-approved, getting ready for the financing, making sure that you understand how it works, what those parameters are, and then go and finding deals that may work for that. Now, there's several ways that you make money from rental properties. Number one, you make money from cash flow. I would not plan on this in the first 5 to 7 years. You might get some, but I wouldn't plan on it. I find a lot of people go looking for cash flow and they buy wrong properties and don't understand the management headaches, the repair headaches that are necessary for that. And so they buy something that looks like it has cash flow, but in the end, it eats all of that up and more because of repairs and maintenance and management and those things. The second way that we make money is appreciation. The next way that we make money is amortization, which is basically appreciation is the property value going up over time. Amortization is your tenant paying down your loan. You see, each time they make a payment, part of that goes towards the principal balance and they're paying that down. And then we've got tax write-off. Okay, so you're gonna have business write-offs, cell phone, that type of stuff. You're gonna have tax write-offs for repairs and inspections or whatever you end up doing. So that's the multiple ways. What I find when people are first starting approaching rental properties is they only looked at one thing, and the one thing they look at is cash flow. And so here's what happens. There's a lot of properties in the Midwest that look like they're really good cash flowing properties. And so somebody says, hey, that looks really great. the rent's $1,000, my payment's going to be $500. I'm going to make $500 cash flow minus, a few expenses, so I'll make $300, let's just call it. But what they don't realize is every 6 months they're going to have to get a new tenant in there. What they don't realize is that that tenant's not going to leave and they're going to have to go through an eviction. What they don't realize is that the condition of this property, if it's vacant, is going to get vandalized because it looks like it's in a nice neighborhood. But those are all things that look good on paper, but the reality, they don't look good. And I'm going to show you how to avoid some of those things as we talk about areas and things that we should be looking at here. So setting the right expectations comes first. You're not going to make money in the first 5 to 7 years. It'll probably cost you some money. In the long term, it's going to double in value and your rents are probably going to double. And that's when you're going to start really catching that's when you really start having the advantage. If you're looking for advantages today in your rental properties, you're probably not going to find very many, and it's really easy for people to get discouraged. It really comes down to staying power. The longer you can retain that asset over the longest duration of time, that's when you end up winning in the real estate game. So let me show you a few things here on the computer. Okay. Rental property prices over time, right? 1940, they were $27. In 2021, they're $1,191 is the average rent over time. If you look at this area between 2010 and 2015, you'll see 2010 was about $810, and 2015 it was $923. The interesting thing here is this is the 2008. This is the worst real estate crash of all time, and guess what? Rents went up for most people. For me, they went down for just a minute, but not a lot. And then they started coming up because a lot of people that were losing their house had to find a place to move into if they weren't moving in with family. And so rents actually went up during that time. And you can see the steady incline of rents. The bottom line is there isn't any more land, right? Land is, you can't make more land. You just can't make more land. You're seeing prices go up and you'll continue to see that. And so we've got to be in this for the long haul. Next thing I want to show you is this shows you values of properties over a period of time. And I like to highlight this again. 2008, property values were 223. Okay, this is the worst time to possibly buy a house, $233,000, right? 2008, well, actually, let's come up here. 2007, there's the peak of the market, $257,000. Okay, what is that? Q1 of 2007. That was probably the worst time to buy a house, okay? And so let's look at this. It came down to 208,000. Okay, that was the low during the worst time possible in the real estate recession, the days of 2008, the worst things possible. Let's look at this. 257 minus 208, we're talking about $49,000. Okay, $49,000 divided by that 208, or divided by the 257. Okay, we saw a loss of 19%. Okay, there's a reason why lenders like you to put 20% down because they know this data. But there's a loss of 19%. Okay, so that, if you do things right, should be a good guide to say, hey, kind of what's worst case? And I say, I think worst case is 20%. Could it be more? Absolutely. But if we look at the median, it doesn't look like that. Now, let's look from that time, from that worst case scenario, which was 2009, when there was at 208, okay? And then let's say, what did it get up to? Well, it got up to, that same property went up to 479, okay? Over the period of, let's see, this is 2022. So this is 2008, so we're say 14 years, okay? 14 years, the property went from 208 to 479. It more than doubled in value in 14 years. So when we look at this, even if you look at the low, let's say you bought at the high here at 257,000, how long would have it taken for you to get back to that same price? Well, let's look here, 258, there you go. So 2013. So if you would have bought in 27, it would have taken you till 2013 to have your property value get back to where it was. So we're talking a 5 to 6 year period. I think that's 6, depending upon the quarters, the months, whatever the case is. But the worst real estate crash we've seen of all time took 5, 6 years to get the value back from, if you would have bought it at the highest possible, to getting back to where it was before. So that's why we've got to put things in perspective here, because we're not day traders, right? We are looking for things that are going to go up over time, over consistency. And that is what we're looking for when we're looking for these rental properties. And so setting the stage here and saying, hey, can you make money with rental properties? Absolutely. There's multiple ways to make that, but it's all about staying power, buying it, hanging on to it, and keeping it for the long term. So the thing that also is great about when we're talking about these rental properties is you don't have to buy a great deal. These are market prices. This is not discounted market. This isn't using Investor's Edge to find good deals and all that type of stuff. You wouldn't even have to do that, and you still would have doubled your money. So there's a lot of ways to find properties. You don't have to be looking for that very best deal, because the difference between a good deal and a bad deal is 14 years, 10 years, and you see things double as long as they have the staying power. So that's where we get to this whole point of, I need to make sure that you're at least breaking even. Okay, that's the whole formula here. You've got to break even, which means your cost, you can't be feeding it, okay? We want you to break even. That's where we're kind of saying, okay, this is where we get into a break-even type situation. That's where we're looking at a deal. Now, my old rule is I wanted to cash flow. I want to make $100 a month. That was kind of my goal. If I could make $100 a month, I was good. But that becomes more and more difficult as prices have gone up and everything else. So right now it's break even, right? So what that means is my rent that I get, let's just say it's $1,000, okay? My rent's $1,000. Then I've got property taxes. Well, let's just say property taxes are $100 a month. This is monthly, okay? I've got my insurance. My insurance should be, I don't know, somewhere around $30, let's say, my property. And then what we get into is we've got some maintenance. Okay, so I plan on about 5%, so I put about $50 a month in maintenance. And repairs, I'm gonna put about $50 a month into repairs. What's the difference between maintenance and repairs? Repairs are things that stop them from using the house right now. Maintenance are things where every 5 years or 10 years, I'm gonna have to replace the roof. So I'm putting some money in here. I put it in a high yield savings account, and then that high yield savings account is growing, and I just put a little money in there. So I've got it set aside for some of those things and repairs that I'm gonna end up needing. Now, I used to take out some money for vacancy, but I have learned how to manage properties. My average tenant stays about 10 years, so I don't deal with a vacancy, which is the most expensive thing that happens, is tenant turnover, because you lose rent, you have to fix it up, and so that becomes very expensive, and I'll show you how to avoid that here in just a minute. So let's just take this, we've got our $1,000, and we're gonna take out $100 minus $30 minus $50 minus $50, and we're at $770. Okay, so what I want to make sure is my payment is not more than $770. Now I'm just talking about principal and interest. Okay, so what if my payment on this deal is going to be more than $770? Well, then I either have to find a better deal or I have to put more money down, right? Those are the two things, because I want to be making sure that I'm at this break even, which it's really not a break even because maintenance and repairs are coming out. So I'm putting that over here to save that up in my high yield savings. Let's talk for a few minutes just about rent in general, okay? This is the strategy that everybody overlooks. Everybody's looking for what's the most I can possibly rent this property for. You get the wrong tenants if you do that. What I look at is what are market rents, and then I take down the market rents by like $100 a month. And I'm not looking for what's the highest market rent. I'm saying, hey, what are things going for in this area? If everything in the area was renting for $1,100, or let's say everything's renting for $1,000, I would rent around $900 to $950. Okay, well, why am I doing that? Because I want to get the very best tenants. What's going to happen is you're going to get flooded with applications, and you're going to have to be really, really picky about who you rent to. And the way you be very picky is you find someone that really values that great deal, that isn't just looking for it because that's the most they can spend. And then you sort through, you find the very best person, and you find someone that wants to be long-term. We're in the business of long-term rentals. We don't do short-term rentals. And when I say long-term rentals, 6 months is not long-term. Long-term for me is someone staying there 30 years. Okay, that's what we're into. I think my longest tenant so far is 15 years, right? Paid for half my mortgage, let's say. That's who I'm looking for. So if somebody comes to me and they don't have a toolbox, if they don't have a lawnmower, if they don't have those types of things, I don't rent to them. And if somebody comes to me and they're saying, hey, I just want to rent for 6 months or 8 months or a year or whatever the case is, I don't rent to them. I want a minimum of 2 years. But I really want them to be there for 5 to 15 years plus. When they ask me, I say, I want you to be there forever. Like, we want people that want to put roots down, which means I have to buy a property that people can put roots down. And so for the most part in my area, I need a little bit bigger of a house. So my 4 beds, 2 baths, and a 2-car garage is ideal. I don't have to necessarily be that, but what I find is this is the demographic where people stay for a much longer period of time. Kids get in school, they put down some roots, they go to the local church, whatever the case is, it becomes their home. Whereas when I'm looking at duplexes, it's more transient. Maybe I'm going to school and then I'm gonna go somewhere else, and so every 6 months I'm getting turnover, or in the summers I don't have anybody because there's no school in session, or whatever the case is. If you're dealing with rental properties on that type of a level, it's short term. And I'm not talking about vacation rentals, but I'm saying 6 months, 8 months, 3 months, whatever the case is, you're dealing with that. Where when I'm dealing with this, I'm dealing with a whole other class of people, okay? And totally different people, totally different needs. The needs that they have is somewhere that they can stabilize, stay long term, and their needs are, they wanna make sure that they're gonna get a deal. And here's the great thing. If 5 years from now, we're raising rents. We're going to raise rents every couple of years, right? You know, rents are going to raise. Rents are going to go up. But here's what I can do. I can go to these great people and say, hey, you know what? Prices have gone up. Values have gone up. Taxes have gone up. Insurance has gone up. Maintenance and repairs has gone up. I have to raise rents. I don't have a choice. However, I want you guys to go out. I want you to look around. I want you to see what you can find out there that's comparable to this property. And then I want you to send it to me. And I will give you even better deal than what they are offering. So go on the market. Moving sucks. Moving's a hassle unless they have some life-altering event. They don't want to move as long as the house is big enough to fit their needs. They've moved, they've made it their own. So what do? Well, you have them go out there. You have them find comparables. They bring it to you. You take it down by $50 to $100 a month. You get them signing a lease, and you raise the rents, and you keep doing that every couple of years. They're getting the benefit of it, and so are you. But mostly you're getting the benefit because you don't have the tenant turnover. You're not having a loss of rents. You're not having to pay to repaint and carpet and do all those types of things that you may normally have to do. But that comes down to finding the right properties, which is what we're going to talk about next. All right, so next we're gonna be talking about finding the right properties, okay? So the question here is, how do I find the right properties? Well, we talked a little bit about it. We don't wanna be in the transient rental business. And when I say that, I'm talking about people that are staying for less than a year. I really don't like people staying less than 2 years. So anything less than 2 years to me is transient, meaning they're leaving too fast for me. I really want to have people be there for their lifetime and for their kids' lifetime to come. And so what I'm looking for is I want places that people will stay an average of 10 years. That's really what I'm looking for. So typically I'm looking for 4 beds in my area and 2 baths and a 2-car garage. But here's the thing that most people don't realize. There is a declining return when it comes to purchase price and rent, okay? There's this place where it crosses, okay? So basically, you're gonna see your rents going up, and then you're gonna see them start to plateau. So we're gonna call this rent amount, okay? And we're gonna call this, they'll kind of come up just a little bit, okay? That's the rent amount, and then this is the property value, okay? So you're gonna have some gap here, but this is where I wanna be, because here, if I buy a house for $1 million, you know, I might get $4,000 a month in rent, but I could buy a house for $300,000 and I could get $2,000 a month in rent, right? So I'm paying 3 times more, but I'm only getting double the rent. That's where we start saying, I'm getting declining returns, okay? So the properties that I think you should be going after are things where people are gonna be staying for 10 years, which means they've gotta be big enough, but I also don't wanna get too expensive of homes because I want the majority of people to be able to buy them. So for me, I don't go over anything more than the FHA limit in my area. So I want to be under the FHA limit. So how do I know my FHA limit? Really quite simple for single family house. So single family home FHA limit for whatever, let's say Atlanta. That was horribly spelled on a lot of ways. Counties, they have a limit of 498. However, there's some counties with a higher limit, blah, blah, blah. I don't do the higher. So 500,000, you know, 500,000 is the very most I want to spend. I'm not going to spend a penny over 500,000. Frankly, I want to spend less than that. But what people typically do is they say, what's the cheapest property I can possibly buy? They try and buy that property, but they don't think about the maintenance, the repairs, the vandalism, and all those things that they're going to have to deal with. Okay, so that's what we're looking at here is we want to be under the FHA minimum, something that they're going to be there for 10 years is the goal. The next thing that I'm going to be looking into is I am going to be looking into some information on the property itself. So one of the things I want to look at is crime reports. I do not want to be in high crime neighborhoods. 30033. Okay, let's just see what we've got here. Okay, there's 8 records. This is the date range. The date range is just 7 days. So I want to do a custom date range and I want to look over the last like 6 months. So let's just go back. I don't know if that's 6 months or not, but it'll give me a better idea. I'm going to apply that. Okay, so let's say my property's right here. I'm looking here saying, okay, what are we dealing with here? Okay, we've got theft from a motor vehicle. We've got burglary. We've got assault, aggravated assault. We've got theft. We've got those types of things. Okay, guys, this is probably not a neighborhood that I want. This is probably not a neighborhood that I want to be living in. The rule of thumb that I have, my wife and I say, if we wouldn't live in the property, we wouldn't own it. Now, that doesn't mean it would be our first choice, but it means we would be comfortable. My rule of thumb is I would be comfortable with my wife walking down the street alone at night. If it doesn't meet that litmus test, you shouldn't be buying it. So this is what I'm looking at here. Now, how do you know? Because every area has crime. We get that. But the best thing that you can do is you can put in the zip code where you live and look at the crime there and compare that to the crime for a property, a zip code that you're looking at buying in. And you can compare those two and be like, hey, my area is really, really low crime. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with a little bit more crime, but not a lot more. Or maybe you say, hey, where I'm at, there's more crime that I would want to see in one of my rental properties, and I can use that as a comparison. These are ones that the aggravated assaults, or these assault charges, these are ones that really worry me. And then also when we're dealing with motor vehicle, theft from motor vehicle, I don't know if that's grand theft. This is with a police county that it comes from, so you can get the information from them. So I'm trying to find, and this is a busy street here, I'm assuming. So, you know, this may not be, I don't want somebody from Atlanta saying, that neighborhood's awesome. I don't know, but what I am doing is doing a comparison. So what I start doing is I start building a list of zip codes that I would be interested in purchasing properties, okay? I'm building this list of zip codes, and the way I'm gonna build that list of zip codes is I'm gonna look at crime in the area. I'm gonna compare the crime for where I live, where that zip code actually is. Next thing that I'm gonna be looking at is schools. What I find is that schools, let's just say Atlanta, zip code 84, not 84, what was that zip code we were just in there? 30033. Okay, 30033, okay? I find, let's just, middle school. Okay. So I'm looking through here and I'm looking for good schools. Let's just zoom out just a little bit more. Yeah, I mean, these schools look great. 10, let's see, 9, 10, 9, 10. Let's just go a little bit further. Let's go like 10 miles. Okay, that's an 8. That's an 8, 8, 7, 7, 7, 7s. Okay, so I like what I'm seeing here with the schools. You can see it here as well. When I start worrying about schools is when we start getting into the 5s, the 4s, the 3s. I really want to see more 7s or 8s. So that's what I'm looking for. And the idea is, remember, I want someone that's going to stay there a long time. They're going to stay there a long time. They're probably going to want to be in good schools or have kids that are going to be going through schools. Let's look over here and say, hey, let's look at the high. Oh, that is high school. No, I don't know. Is that high school? Let's come up here and see. Let's just do high schools. Okay, that was middle school. Let's go to high school or elementary or whatever we want to do. And let's see some results on that. Okay, so I've got some 5s and 6s. I've got some 7s and 8s, right? So I like this area more than I kind of like this area. And so that's the same thing. Now you're going to say, well, Ryan, how do I know what's a good school and what's not a good school? What you can do is compare it to the schools that you know. So you can put in areas here that you already know and say, hey, would I consider that a good school, a bad school? It's not bulletproof. This gives you an idea, but it helps give you an idea of, hey, here's some areas I want to go. So I'm going to look at the crime, and then I'm going to look at the schools. And I'm going to say, hey, am I okay with these schools in this area because I want decent schools? Does that mean they have to be 10s? No. I definitely wouldn't do anything over 5s. Maybe you're saying, I want to be more on the 7, 8, 9, or maybe the 9, 10 and the 7, 8. Those are all things that you've got to look at when you're trying to determine the area that you want to go to. Okay, now the next thing that I'm going to do is I have to kind of get an idea of what is happening with rents. Okay, so one of the things that's going to be really helpful is we're going to be looking at statistics, stats, okay? The stats we're going to be looking for are here in Investor's Edge. I'm going to put in, okay, what I'm going to do is put in here the zip code, and then I'm going to change this to the last 6 months, okay? Because I want to get an idea of what's happening, okay? So prices have gone down, negligible, rent's gone up, price per square foot, I'm seeing that's going up, average days on market. Okay, let's see, listing trends, sales price. I'm seeing some pricing come down, days on market's coming down. Okay, that's interesting information. The other thing that I want to look at is I want to look at rents, okay? What type of rents am I going to be looking at for this area? And I can come here, I can look at rents, and I'm going to look at total rents, okay? So just straight up rents, what are we looking at here? Oops. As we were saying, what is this property? What are rental values for this property in this area? Rental price, okay? This gives me an idea. You see, this is under 500, this is over 5,000. This is giving me an idea of neighborhoods and rents and that type of stuff that I'd be looking for. I can also get an idea of kind of what we're talking about, purchase price, 380, 370, you know, somewhere in there. Okay, that's interesting. I can come and I can look at some of these different properties. This will tell me an idea of rents. It's not something that you want to bet the farm on, but it gives you an idea to start looking for those properties and what you're looking for. And is it a good deal? Is it going to make sense? Is it going to pencil? So those are the things that we're looking for when we're looking for what areas that we want to be in. We're looking for crime. We're looking for schools. We're looking for what's happening with property values, and we're looking for rents. What's the average rent? A 5-bedroom goes for $3,000. A 4-bedroom on average goes for $2,432. Okay, that is really interesting. Price per square foot. What are we looking at here? 219. So that helps me determine. And what I'm going to do is put a bunch of zip codes together. And these are zip codes that I am interested in buying potential properties in if I find the right deal. One thing you may have to do is drive. I think anything under an hour is okay. I prefer to be 30 minutes or less. 45 minutes is kind of borderline. An hour or more, I don't want to go over an hour. But 30 minutes, 45 minutes is perfectly acceptable, because depending upon the area you're in, you'll probably have to drive 30 minutes to find something that's going to meet this formula we're looking for, right? We're looking for something that people can stay there for a long time, right? 5, 10 plus years. To do that, we're looking for low crime, great schools. We're looking for stats. We also want to make sure that we're going to be breaking even at least. And we want to be buying in this zone here where we're not getting diminishing returns, where the price that we're paying versus the rent we're getting, we start seeing us go upside down in. So that's what we're looking for when we're finding these and looking for the neighborhoods and finding these zip codes. Then we make a list of all those zip codes, and then we actually start shopping for properties.